mode.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us for our ongoing webinar series for Plex platform. Today is Unlock the Power of Process Flows in Plex. Okay, so a little bit about ourselves here. We are Revolution Group. We're a full service IT partnership from the traditional IT services to a full service Plex partner. We are Plex's first partner. We've done 100 plus implementations. We have over 25 years of experience with developing manufacturing applications. And we have a wide range of experience with custom development, integration development, integrating with numerous different software packages, and just the selection on the screen here just like a small selection of the total number of software packages we've implemented in the past. Again, we're full service Plex partner. We take you from cradle to grave in terms of new deployments to optimizations, UX transitions to custom development. All right, so you didn't come here today to hear me describe Revolution Group. So getting into the nuts here, the agenda, we're gonna go through our problem statement that we introduced in the previous webinar that we had, where we encountered a problem with cycle counting. We're going to review our custom fields setup that we performed in the last webinar, and then we're going to dive right in to process flows. We're going to go through some of the basics, what some of the shapes do, how to look up data sources that you can use and be successful in that process flow generation. And you're gonna view today the complete flow construction from blank slate or canvas to a fully functioning process flow that's going to solve some of our issues. Okay, so cycle counting. Let me go further. Cycle counting is an essential part of any customer that monitors inventory, which should be just about every single Plex customer. Common questions that I have heard personally throughout my career is, at least around inventory, is, well, how can I trust this inventory? Is this container still there? This container's from 2015. Can you go check when the last time we saw it? Which, as you can imagine, with some materials departments, right, that would could take you from just looking at the last cycle counts or the last container to see when you last saw it, or it could be the extreme of, well, you're going to head right to the floor because you don't trust what you see inside of Plex, and you're going to go get eyes and hands on that material. So obviously, all of that extra churn causes you guys to lose energy double checking cycle count dates, when the last time you had hands on the material, and this causes an overall lack of trust in your inventory management system, as it could be the starting point of even more inventory issues. The less trust that you have in your inventory system, well, then the less kind of restraint or caution that you have for enacting inventory updates or changes. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to extend cycle counts in with custom fields and process flows. Part one, we're going to be adding custom fields to both parts and containers. Step 2, we're going to build out the process flow here. Okay. Again, we're going to answer these questions as we're solving this. Is when did I last cycle count this container? What is the average cycle count accuracy? And then what is really the cycle accuracy for this part? We're going to have the custom fields, last cycle count date, last cycle count accuracy, last cycle count container accuracy, which this one's going to be at the part level, and then this one down here is going to be at that specific container level. Really, you need both kind of accuracy metrics, right? If you counted a container and it was 100% correct, great. But if your overall inventory cycle count was 20%, well, that's not great. That's really telling you that you have an issue with this inventory container, and you may or may not be able to trust that accuracy. But conversely, right, if you had an overall accuracy of high 90s, maybe a low inventory accuracy on that specific container, well, that's telling you that you probably should be able to trust this container as it was previously counted and is now kind of accurate, as that overall cycle count was pretty accurate. Okay, so let's build a process flow. I'm not gonna cue into a Frozen soundtrack parody here, but let me change my screen here real quick. Okay, so should be showing my screen. I'll just make sure I'm showing. Yep. All right. So the first thing I said I wanted to do was I want to check out my custom fields. So I have in here like numerous custom fields that we've created just through our really our usage of custom fields. Okay, so I have in here, I want to review it from the container side. Well, I have in here a last count accuracy, great. I have here a last count and a reactivated during count field, which I'll open these up here. And then I have a last count accuracy at the part level. Just quickly go through it. So the last count, how we're going to use that today, that will be the date and time of the last count that occurred. Okay, it's a pretty simple custom field. It's set up at the container level for the standard object. It's going to be displayed, zoom out a little bit. It's going to be displayed at the container detail. So right on the container form, you're going to be able to see it from the overall inventory screen. You could filter it if you wanted to. Okay. Next one on the container, which is the last count accuracy. This is set up as a decimal, as we'll get to that in the process flow, but there is some limitation in the workaround where could not like truncate text and concatenate on a percent sign to make it really obvious that it's a percent, other than this is the last accuracy. Well, maybe let's call that percent there. It's going to show up on the container detail. It's going to show up on the inventory overall list there. Okay. This next one, which I thought it was kind of a neat use case, it was reactivated during cycle count. So if the container went from inactive to active, you will be able to see that on that. Let's put that here on the container. You probably don't care so much on the inventory level. I'll put it there for illustration points. okay? And then I've got this last count accuracy percent at the part level. Again, this is gonna be at the overall part level so that we can track the overall like cycle count, like the last count that happened for this part to see it. So we can see that big picture that connects to all those containers and to be able to reference that overall count percent to all the individual containers without having to update each container to display that information. So we're going to display this in the parts detail, parts, and inventory here. Okay. Okay. Now I'm going to take us through to process flows here. In a second. So I'm going to open up a new flow. And off to the left panel here, these are really called our nodes, or you're used to other flow programming. This could be called shapes or objects. So we have starter objects that have to exist in a flow. We need starts, we need stops. You're going to see me use comments, which are just for the flow. You also will see me use some literals in here to define like a variable that I want to plug into the process flow. This services tag here, which I'll explain the objects that we're going to use today in greater detail of how to use them specifically. And I'll obviously skip the ones that we don't use to respect your guys' time. But anyways, that we can call a few different, which I'd call these Plexi services. We can call data sources. We can send emails. We can get custom fields. We can search custom fields. And obviously we can update custom fields, which we're going to be doing quite a bit of that today. We've got the ability to interact with lists that we're going to be looping, which if experience with programming, and looping is just a kind of like a circle, right? You start at the top for one item and you keep going around in the circle until either you exit the circle or you choose to go on to the next kind of rotation of that circle. It's a way to go through each item in the list one by one. There's also what are called transformations in here that take us from one data type to another. So if you have we're back here. End of it here. Camera here, hopefully that comments here to kind of like the flow cycle. I get the last cycle. I should update the part of its last cycle count accuracy here. And then just because I'm cheating a little bit, I know that I want to get the cycle count container detail here so that we're moving in from the cycle count kind of level and then kind of moving down into the container area there. And then the next thing I want to do here just from planning is, well, I want to update custom fields on the container. Okay, so let's find out how we're going to get this cycle count information here. So the screen that you're going to use to look up of how to find the cycle information is this data sources screen here. Okay, so I'm going to type in here in the module cycle. Okay, popped up cycle count. That's great. So then I'm going to go in here and say, well, I kind of want to get something, which in this like view, right, get will return information to me. So I'm just going to start with this here. Maybe self-serviceable, yeah. Global, yes. This just means it's already whitelisted to the process flows. If you encountered something that wasn't whitelisted there to the process flows, you'd be able to get that. Yeah, this is what I wanted. All right, so of the data sources that returned here, we've got a fair number here. We've got, right? We've got a couple like the cycle inventory complete progress get. That's probably not applicable. So I want to have in this complete, this input, well, I kind of want to look at it from like a complete range. You don't want to have your process flow go through from the beginning of time all the way through the present every single time. That'll just be excessive kind of data source calls, and each data source call would be an instance against your overall web service counts, which it would be problematic long term, or even just specifically if you had this run every day, you could exhaust your web services pretty quick. So I want to look here. So I've got analysis get, I've got export get, and I've got get all version 4. Get all version 4 has got quite a bit of inputs to there. Got a lot of output, so chances are that'll be one that I want to use here. Click in the details here. And here I can see, well, I've got my cycle count date begin, date end. I've got, ooh, this is nice, cycle count status. You probably only want to look at cycle counts that are complete. I've got cycle count types, which are good. Obviously, if we're going to be touching inventory containers, well, we don't want to be looking at cycle counts for supply items. Yeah, that looks pretty good from the input side. Output side, well, I've got this accounted for quantity. That's pretty good. I've got my accuracy quantity. Ooh, I've got cycle count variance quantity. These are all pretty good. I've got my part numbers, my revision numbers. Okay, those look pretty good. And I've got, what else here? I've also got cycle inventory key. That sounds good. I should be able to use that to look up container details here after a while. So I think I'm settled on this data source here. It looks pretty good. So I'm going to come into here to my flow, and well, I'm going to drag out this data sources object here, and I'm going to call this my cycle count detail. Ooh, I guess it's technically a summary get, and then I'm just going to take in my data source name here. Let's remove that part, select it, and this is showing me all of the different data inputs that I could want here. So I think for our flow side of things, it probably makes sense if you have this run every single day. If you have like a dedicated cycle counter, on staff, probably makes sense for the flow to run every day. So I'm going to show you how to set that up, whether it's every day or every month. We're actually going to do ours in years to have a fair number of cycle counts in our PCN complete. So I'm going to come in here to the input and say, well, I want to look at it from a cycle count date begin, a cycle count date end. That makes sense. a cycle count status key. That sounds pretty good. Cycle count type. Okay. I think that's all I care about for the data source here. This is going to return rows, which are multiple instances of cycle counts we're gonna loop through. All right, so I'm gonna take it here. So to start, I'm gonna connect this up here. Okay, so we've got start. It's gonna call this. Well, I'm gonna want to tell it the cycle count status here that I want to look at. So I drug out this literal here from the pane right onto the canvas there. I want to have it as an integer. You can see here the greens are integers in the process flow side. And I'm going to call this cycle status key. And then we'll do a little bit of cheating here just for the time constraint. So I know my PCN by going to the setup table and looking up my cycle count status, that my completed key is 867, which this could vary by PCN. I'm going to drag this right onto my cycle count status here. And then the other piece I want to wire up, which I'll drag this on here to stay out of the way. You can click on this little dot here to drag it off if you want to, just clean it up. And then the other thing I want to have in here is, well, the cycle count type. So let's do cycle count type E. I know, again, from a little cheating here, parts are 0, supply items are 1. So I want to drag in my 0 here. And I can leave this off here or drag it onto the shape. I think it looks a little cleaner, as you're going to see what I'm getting ready to do here in a little bit. I want to make this left side a little dirty and a little chaotic. So I'm going to take in, now I need to satisfy these 2 additional inputs here. I need the date complete, the complete date begin, the complete date end. Well, if we're going to have this run every day, I think it's fair to say that, well, now is a good date end for a time, okay? Okay, and then let's think about it this way. So we've got a date add here. So I'm gonna take this date add. It's a little counterintuitive, date add, but I'm gonna take this and call it, again, your instance, right? If this ran every day, it could be every day it runs, every year that it runs, or weeks, or what have you. I'm going to do in here years back. Again, you can configure this to say if it's years back or weeks back. I'm going to call it years. Okay. I'm going to take my now parameter here, and I'm just going to drag that to the date. You can see that, well, I was able to drag that to both places here. Okay. It's showing me this bright red as I have an additional requirement to satisfy this shape. It's an offset. So if I call this years back, well, I'm going to take today's date, and I need to give it a value here. Drag out a literal, and let's call this years back value. A little bit. Do an integer, which integers are whole numbers. And then I'm going to say, well, I'm going to look back 10 years. Okay. Say click off. You can see the -10 there. Again, like I said, depending on what value you selected on this shape for the offset, could have been years, could have been months, could have been weeks, could have been minutes, days, hours, not seconds. And then I'm going to drag that onto my begin here. Okay, and so I'm going to drag out a loop here. And I'm going to drag in my value here. I've got rows that I'm going to put into my loop here to connect it up. And then really from there, like the next thing to do would be to fill out my fields, which will, I didn't name that as it's going to be out of our way in just a little bit. I'm going to drag my item to my fields here. I can select which values are important for me here. So I've got this accounted for quantity. I've got this accuracy. I may or may not want to need, we'll hang on to that for a second. I know I need a completed date here. I know I need my inventory key here from like a value that I need. I need my cycle count variance quantity. And then I also need my part number revision as a value that I need here. So I've got these fields here, which, and to clean it up, I'm just going to drop it onto the loop here. And then when I'm done looping through this, kind of those loop of rows, I'm really going to be done with the full process flow here. So this is going to be out of our way here, as this is really the records that I'm going to be going through here. Okay. So one of the first things that I'm going to try and answer is, was there a part number in this cycle count, right? We obviously don't want to be going through a cycle count without a part number. So I'm going to go into here to my ifs. I'm going to drag out an if here. I'm going to connect it to my each, where I want to do this conditional for every kind of loop through my result set here, and then this little orange is like a Boolean or a true false value. And I'm going to come into my my logic area here, and one of the things I want to answer was, well, do I have a part number revision here? Well, let's drag out our logic here is null or empty. I'm going to take in my part number here. I'm going to drag it into my shape here, and really that'll tell me if there is a part number here or not. As like that's really the crux of a core requirement here, is there's a part number. If there is not a part number, well, what I want to do here is just, well, let's go on to the next row of completed cycle counts, which I'm going to drag this out of our way here. Okay. So then the next question I want to ask, right, is I'm going to do some math here to figure out what my actual overall count accuracy was. So the next thing I want to do is, well, if you've ever tried to divide by 0, usually make calculators unhappy, and certainly computer programs unhappy. So what I want to do here is do another kind of conditional to really make sure I don't have any weird divide by zeros and cause type of overflow issue. So I want to check here. Let's do a compare number. So, okay, is 0. Okay. Well, let's look at this. The cycle count variance quantity. Okay. Okay. Let's see if that's 0. Well, how to do that comparison? Well, I'm going to drag another literal here. to, let's call this 0, and just an integer. 0 sounds great. Okay. And well, that's not the only other instance that could cause it to divide by 0. Well, let's do the accounted for quantity, 0. So we're going to do in here the accounted for quantity. Let's move this down here a little bit, get out of our way. So another number comparison. And we go into here and let's get our accounted for quantity. I'm going to take another, that same 0 there. Okay. And then now I only want to advance in this loop if all of those things are really like false, right? We're looking to see if that's 0 equals 0, that'll be a true, 0 equals 0, that'll be a true. So I'll come here and say, and, so if true is, so that quantity is 0, and accounted for quantity is 0, well then, let's put that up into here, and then since this could be true if it had a 0, well then let's just move on to the next loop. Okay. And then if it's not 0, then we should do something about this. Okay, the first thing that we want to do here is we want to look at it from like the part value. So I'm going to come into here and I want to pull in my update custom fields. Let's update part accuracy. Okay. I'm going to select part as my standard object. And then I'm going to select my last count accuracy %. Okay, so what do we need here? We need a part key. Okay, do we have a part key? Doesn't look like it, and we didn't have any on the fields either for part key, which is unfortunate, but it's not the end of the world. So what we do have is part number revision. So there is another great data source that we can use. If you've ever done any VisionPlex type of data sources, you probably can guess what type of data source I'm going to pull. If we know the part number revision, well, we should probably know, like, there should be a picker that gives us that value back. So there are actually 10 or so part pickers you could have selected. I picked this part picker symbol, which I'm going to go into it to show you like why I picked it. I've got part number revision, check. That has the values from the cycle count detail we have. And then it's got part key, which is also what we need here. Okay. So I'm going to go back to my flow here. And I'll pull out another data source here, and let's call this get part key. And then I'm going to paste in my picker value. Okay. I know that I'm going to give it part revision, part number revision. I'm going to keep that as the only input. Okay. So the first thing I want to do coming from this conditional that I had for cycle count quantities, make sure I'm actually going to be touching something with a valid cycle count on it. I'm going to take this else, put this into here. Like the next thing we're going to do is we're going to check for the part key. I'm going to go back to here. I'm going to grab my part number revision into here. And then, well, I still have rows. So Rows, we know how to deal with that. We just previously looped through rows to be able to get an individual item, which the reason why this is rows is that it's a picker data source, right? It could potentially return us many parts that could have matched this. So I'm going to come into here, and I know it's going to be a one-to-one match, at least for our use case. And you may need something additional on your PCN if you have, depending on your part structure. But I'm going to come into here, take my items. I only want part key. I'm going to make this a little cleaner by dragging the fields onto there. And then, well, then I know, you go done, part key. Oop, didn't work. That was for each. Okay. And then, oops, it looks like I drew the wrong one here. All right, so I'm gonna, for each part key lookup that I find, which I should only have one here, I'm gonna go through here and I'm going to take the part key and I'm gonna update the cycle count accuracy. Okay, so we don't have that value yet. So to do the math on that, which is pretty simple math, I'm going to drag out, you probably guessed it, the math object here, and I'm going to, let's say I'm going to minus, what are we minusing? Well, we're going to minus our accounted for quantity minus our cycle count variance quantity. So we have the difference number there. And then we're going to put that over our accounted for quantity. So the accounted for is our total quantity. The cycle count variance is the difference from that accounted for quantity. So I'm going to do another math component here. We're going to do a division operator. We're going to take our numerator here of result, which was that with the quantity change here, and then we're going to put that over the accounted for quantity here, which little bit of a spaghetti mess right there, but we at least have the math here right now. Right now it's in decimals, right? Most people aren't used to looking at percents by decimals, so tell you a secret how you convert a decimal to a percent value. Well, I'm gonna take that result that I had there, and I'm gonna take a literal here of it's called a decimal, and well, probably already guessed it, I'm gonna times it by 100 to be able to get my percent here. Okay, here's my part here. Awesome. So I've gotten here my last count accuracy. That's great. And I know that I'm only going to have one result here. So I know I'm going to have only one result. I probably can say loop exit. If you have, and that essentially, if you're used to like SQL, this essentially just does like a top one, where I only care about the first result, right, wrong, or indifferent. It's going to exit that loop. This would have updated that part's cycle count accuracy. And well, so this would have updated my last count accuracy on the part level. So then the very next thing I'm going to do here is, well, I'm going to get my cycle count detail, which for time's sake here, I'm going to cheat a little bit, but I went into the data sources screen here and I looked up this specific record here, and I know that I'm going to use the inventory key off of here, and I'm going to start this process from going to from this loop of the part key. I'm going to take its cycle count inventory key, move it well over into here, and then that's going to return me my my list of serial numbers that I want to update for this specific part. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to loop through this result of details. We're going to take the rows of that, put it through that loop there. We're going to take some fields here, and these fields are going to be, again, the values we're going to extract from that loop. I know in here that I want to have my cycle count quantity. I want to have my quantity, which we've got two values there. Quantity, I wanted the reactivated flag. I certainly need serial number if I know that I'm going to be updating a container. I'm going to drag that onto this here, just clean it up just a little bit. I'm going to deal with the done piece of this loop. So first thing I want to do, right, when this is done, the item, we're going to loop next. Okay, and then one of the first things I want to do at this inventory kind of detail level or container level, well, the first thing we did last time really was let's evaluate the part number revision. Well, we've already done that in a previous step. We know that this is going to have something here. Okay. Then the second thing we did was we evaluated for the 0 denominator. So I'm going to take my literal here again. I know I need a 0, which integer 0 looks good. I'm going to take my quantity of the container, which should be my overall quantity before it was counted. So take that, and then I'm going to do a number comparison here again, and do number compare. Take that into here. Well, is this 0 or not? Quantity is 0. Well, if it's 0, and I use the word if, think through this each. If it's 0, well then I just want to skip on past it because that's going to be a 0% accuracy, and it's going to be something that'll make a divide by 0 really unhappy there. Loop next. Okay. And then from that, well then, I think I'm ready to start talking about updating the container custom fields. So I've got, again, this custom fields shape here. Well, we know it's not 0, so we've got something we can update. We need to tell it what standard object we're going to update. We've got container. I've got my last count, I've got my last count accuracy, and I've got my reactivated during count. Well, let's do the easy things first. So we know serial number from this here. Then we also know when it was last counted was all the way back into here, this complete date that we have. We're going to drag it all the way across. Okay. The other thing that we know, well, if it was reactivated or not. So I'm gonna take this, drag that into here, and well, the last kind of remaining fit here, kind of besides this little red unhappiness, which we'll just take care of that real quick for the loop next, which basically means I've done my update and I'm ready to look at the next serial. So the last thing is this last count accuracy percentage. So we're gonna do some math here, and we're gonna take the cycle count quantity and put that over the quantity here. Okay. And then to make that into a nice readable form again, we're going to take a literal here, and we're going to say 100. And then we need some more math. Take that result there, times that by 100, and that plus times. Put this into our count here for our last count accuracy percent. And I think that does it for our flow. So let's, and looks like I did something, there we go. I did something dangerous here, which I hope you don't do. Save and save often, which the luck that I was having with computer freezing, thank God I didn't lose anything, but save often. All right, so I'm gonna take this flow here and I'm gonna hit run. So we're gonna be able to watch this come through here. So I'm gonna hit run here. And it looks like I had an issue here. Cycle count gets summary count. So what did I do wrong here? So cycle count type. So it gave me an error here. And I should be able to see no cycle count actually max retry backtracking. So it looks like I've got something wrong here. Let's look at that here. So I've got years back. Offset date time now. Years back. I should be able to see the result here, what that value is. Years back, again. Well, shoot, I'm gonna risk that you always run doing a demo live here. I'm gonna take some of these off here and I'm gonna get past that error there. I know I have a cycle count here. I have a cycle count inventory key here that I can use just for our example today. To get past here, I am going to have to call it out from an integer here. And this is my value here, which is a cycle count. There was some issue with the process flow that I didn't have while I was testing this out, but let's save here just so you can see it run for. Let's run. Yeah, let's take that off. Okay. So I had something wrong with my date comparison there. All right, so when I ran this for the one record here, which I would have expected it to have many records, we can see by clicking on the overall shape here of the data that came back here. So you can see the exact data that came through here. And, oops. And then you'll be able to see it as it progresses through here. Let me just restart here so you can see it a little better. Get that out of the way. You can see it jump through here. It does all of our logic pieces here. We got our part key. It's coming through our containers here, and it's doing the overall update of the flow here. So I can see in here that we updated a serial number here, which I'm gonna show you guys the results of what this looks like from running. Got serial number here. I'm gonna take this active off here. And I'm gonna go back a couple of years to make sure I got it. 1980, that sounds good. Okay, so the process flow itself here, so we've got, let's get the serial number. So I can see in here my my last count date, my last count accuracy, which looks like I made a mistake here in some of the math there. And then I've got this last count accuracy, which is the part level. So this kind of answers, like, this math should have been like 20%, I believe. I think I got one of the dividers mixed around there, but should have been like 20%. But we can see here for this container that the last count was 6/22/2018 at 2:15. We can see its last count accuracy, it's reactivated during count, and its last count accuracy percent, which goes a long way in terms of answering if you should be able to trust this container. I'm looking at this, and let's say if this came through as the 20%, which it should have. We last counted it 2018 for this container, but the last cycle count that we had was 96%. I probably can trust this container here. All right, I know I ran over a little bit here. Thank you all for hanging in there with me. One thing I'll just ask you to do before you leave, just kind of what are you most excited about automating with process flows? You could enter that into the chat, and I'll share that out to the developer user group community here. It's gonna be a real-time production dashboard for the production floor. Look forward to seeing you all there. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And I'll be posting any comments or questions to the developer user group community. All right, have a good day, everyone.